Howdy gamers. Let's talk about the runes for Irelia mid and top lane. There's a couple variations in the minor runes that you run for her that does have significant impact in her particular matchups. Starting with the top lane, the keystones are going to be Press the Attack and Conquer. It's the same thing for the mid lane. But starting off with Conquer, you gain stacks of Adaptive Force whenever you attack an enemy champion with your auto attacks or with your abilities. So it's very, very easy for Irelia to build this up really quickly. And whenever you build up stacks of Conquer, you get bonus Adaptive Force, which is going to be attack damage. And then that's going to give you more damage on, obviously, your auto attacks, but then every single one of Irelia's abilities. And then this stacks up to 10 times. Whenever it's fully stacked, you heal for 15% of damage that you deal to champions. So it helps you once you've built it up completely, but even if you're taking smaller trades, where it could be a simple auto attack E, auto attack, land the stun on them, and then Q auto, and then Q back to a minion, you'd still have a little bit of AD built up before you use your Q onto them. And with that, you just simply get more damage in a shorter trade in the top lane. In the top lane, with the matchups that you're going to be playing into, it gains a lot of value, especially where you're going to be playing into matchups where even when you're on top of them, they still are going to be surviving, and they're going to be turning damage onto you. So you spend your HP initially to build up the stacks of not only Conqueror, but Irelia's passive Fervor, giving you more damage on hit. And through doing so, you spend your HP, you build up the stacks, and then you are simply dealing more damage to them than they are to you. And then where you've spent your HP initially too, where they turn onto you, then you're healing a bit of that as well. So the enemy is really taking like a lose-lose, and then Irelia is getting like double the value if she gets on top of the enemy first. And a lot of champions at the top lane can do that. So think about champions like Mordekaiser, where even if you're on top of him, even if he's at like low health, he's still surviving. For the secondary runes, your best option is Triumph. Overheal might seem like an interesting option, but it's really not. Champions like Fiora make better use out of Overheal, where they get a lot of lifesteal early. They also have easier healing, more synergistic healing, I should say, in their kit, where they could be healing even when they're full health. Irelia, not so much, as you're not just spamming the Q all over the place, and the extra health shield for her would also not be as high value as a champion that trades all the time. Irelia kind of looks to immediately punish an all-in a champion versus taking small trades in most lanes. With Triumphs, takedowns restore 12% of your missing health and grant you an additional 20 gold. This is going to help you, obviously, in a 1v1 to survive by that much, survive a turret shot. In a 2v2, it's where you really start getting good value out of it, where if you're getting one kill or assist, it helps you finish off the next target. And in 5v5s, even better, where you can be landing your 5-man ult, and it doesn't even matter if you're the one to kill the target or just kill an enemy champion. You're still going to be getting HP restored for that, and the more HP Irelia has to play with, then the more damage that she can inevitably dish out. So I think that's how you should be thinking about Triumph with Irelia, versus having a little bit of a shield in the lane. That's the biggest value out of Overheal, and it kind of becomes irrelevant, especially if the laning phase is negated either through fucking another lane winning, lane swapping, jungle ganks, etc. With the third runes, all of these are okay options. Alacrity giving you attack speed, Tenacity giving you obviously Tenacity, and then Bloodline giving you lifesteal. Alacrity is probably going to be your best option in a lot of the top lane matchups, where pretty similar to why Conqueror is useful, as even when you get on top of the enemy champion, they're going to be surviving, and then they're going to be trading back onto you. With Alacrity, if you just simply have more attack speed, you can get more auto attacks off, and then that's simply more damage, more healing for you, and if you're dealing more damage, then you're probably winning more. With Tenacity, you want to be thinking about the jungle and support matchups. So if they have champions like Zac jungle, Ornn jungle, support champions like Nautilus, Thresh, Leona, etc., you could probably consider running Legend Tenacity, because Legend Tenacity plus Merc Treads is going to make it so that you can actually function come mid to late game in team fights without being locked down by the CC champions. And it's really gross, like how much tenacity you can get just from the rune plus Merc Treads, and then the magic resist is also negating those champions as well. So it's a really gross rune in the matchups that it's good in, but you, like, let's say if you're playing into Fiora top lane, you almost get no value out of this rune. So it really depends on the matchup. With a Bloodline, you gain extra lifesteal. Lifesteal is a pretty weird thing for Irelia, where you're going to be applying it obviously through your auto attacks, but then her Q is also going to be applying the lifesteal. I think you want to be running this into matchups where they don't have a good auto cadence, or their auto attack is slower, or if their abilities are on pretty significant cooldowns. So maybe champions like Aatrox, Rise, where once you get onto them and take trades or are staying on top of them, the damage that they're trading back gets healed a bit, but also their ability to retaliate the damage is there, but then they're on cooldown once they do it. So it's a more unique rune, but it is good on Irelia, and the matchups that it works in, it usually outweighs the attack speed. But defaultly in the top lane, the attack speed is going to be the most generally useful one. For the fourth rune, you have the okay option in Coup de Grace, and you have the really good option in Last Stand. Coup de Grace gives you 8% more damage to champions who are below 40% health. With Coup de Grace on Irelia, you're basically just you're giving 8% more damage to like basically just your auto attacks in a 1v1 scenario, because you have to dump like every single ability to get the enemy below 40% health. And then to have more damage on your auto attacks is kind of whatever, like 8% extra damage on that. With Last Stand, you deal 5 to 11% increased damage to champions while you're below 60% health, and then the max damage percentage increase is gained at 30% HP. So with Last Stand, pretty similar to why Conqueror is useful, pretty similar to why Alacrity and Triumph is useful, is in the top lane matchups where you're getting on top of champions that are going to survive. Mainly, like best example I can give is Mordekaiser. You're trading your health once you get on top of them to build up your Conqueror and your Fervor stacks to therefore deal more damage. If the enemy is dealing more damage to you, then with Last Stand, you get this percentage damage increase, so then all other instances of your damage after that are going to be dealing more damage. So your second rotation of your Q, your E, or just your auto attacks. Or in a team fight, if you're low at the start of the fight to begin with, everything's dealing more damage. So in a 1v1 scenario, it's very, very solid, and then 2v2 and 5v5, it becomes even better. So fantastic rune. Very few matchups would you want Coup de Grace if you're running Conqueror and if you're playing in the top lane, in my fucking opinion. For the secondary rune, I think Inspiration secondary is your best bet, with Biscuits and Time Warp Tonic. Biscuits are every 2 minutes you get a Biscuit until 6. Biscuits restore 10% of your missing health and mana. Consuming a Biscuit permanently increases your mana by 50. You can also get that mana increase by selling it. So you can get gold from these, but the highest value you get from them with Irelia is through you restore 10% of your missing health. So if you're all in with like 300 HP, you use the Biscuit, and in combination with Corrupting Potion and Time Warp Tonic, with Time Warp Tonic, consuming a potion or biscuit grants you 50% of its health or mana regeneration immediately, but puts it on a short cooldown. In addition, you gain 5% movement speed while under the effects, so it really helps you in an all-in. It helps you stay on the target with the movement speed. It immediately gives you the health while you're all-inning, so you can use it for baits, or you can use it just to simply be at the like an amount of HP to survive while you're all-inning the enemy. So very, very high synergy with Irelia. And then with the adaptive runes, it's really, really simple. Attack speed, +6 attack damage, and then depending on the matchups, you want armor into champions like Yasuo, Camille, etc. And then if you're playing into an AP matchup, you obviously want the magic resist, so champions like Mordekaiser, Rumble, etc. You do want to switch that depending on the matchup. For the secondary rune trees, you do have like an option in every single one of them. With Domination, you could run Taste of Blood Ravenous. With Sorcery, you could run Nullifying Orb Transcendence, you could run Nimbus Cloak Transcendence, you could run Gathering Storm Transcendence. With Resolve, you could run Bone Plating Revitalize, you could even run Second Wind Revitalize. But with any of those, you do have to be outweighing Biscuits and Time Warp Tonic, and the simple use of like Biscuits and Time Warp Tonic is very, very good with Irelia, and then also very good in the top lane, as the 5% movement speed is going to help you chase someone down in an all-in, but it's also going to help you run away from a gank if it happens to come in the top lane, because top lane is such a long lane, and having the extra movement speed really does help. With Resolve, you have the option, again, of Bone Plating Revitalize. Bone Plating is going to help you in melee matchups, especially melee matchups where the enemy champion has to jump on you. So think about champions like Camille, Irelia, or not Irelia, Camille, Rengar, etc., where they're jumping onto you and then bursting you right when they get on top of you. With bone plating, after you take damage from an enemy champion, the next 3 spells or attacks against you that you receive from them deal 30 to 60 based on your level less. And this is on a 45-second cooldown. So basically, every single time they jump on you, they're simply dealing less damage. With Revitalize, heal or shields you cast or receive are 5% stronger and increase by an additional 10% while on targets below 40% health. So this is basically increasing all the healing you receive from your Q, through your auto attacks, through corrupting potion, etc. And with that, you have okay tools into those matchups where you can't really, if you can't pick and choose like when they jump onto you, you can get higher value out of these runes than you would from Biscuits and Time Warp Tonic, potentially. With Second Wind plus Revitalize, Second Wind, after you take damage from an enemy champion, you heal for 4% of your missing health plus 6 over 10 seconds. So Second Wind is going to help you in caster matchup top lane. So think about champions like Ornn, where they're melee, but they have these like short range trading tools in Ornn's Q, Ornn's W, etc. Champions that have those type of abilities that are kind of guaranteed to hit Irelia anytime she goes to CS. Second Wind is just going to be offsetting a lot of that damage for free, and then Second Wind continues to give you value come mid to late game, and then Revitalize synergizes with Second Wind, but then it still has its the same use as it does even if you're running bone plating. With Sorcery Secondary is basically like a reward for existing top lane in a matchup, like a non-matchup top lane. So think about champions that you don't really interact with and can't really kill. So champions like maybe Malphite, where, or maybe a champion like Rumble, where Rumble can choose to push out the wave non-stop if he wants to. Your main rune in the sorcery tree is going to be Transcendence. With Transcendence, you gain 10% cooldown reduction once you reach level 10, which you're going to do really quickly in the top lane. With the option of Nullifying Orb, you gain a magic damage shield whenever you're below 30% HP, so it's going to help you in a AP matchup, and not even in just an AP matchup in the top lane. If there's any magic damage from the rest of the enemy team, then it's also going to be helping you there. It has pretty good synergy with Last Stand, as it's giving you more whenever you're lower. And that's basically that. With Nimbus Cloak, you gain extra functionality in your TPs because you get more movement speed whenever you cast a summoner spell. So Nimbus Cloak is going to help you run away from ganks with your flash. It's going to help you chase down the enemy with your flash. And then with Teleport, it's going to help you get into better positions whenever you're teleporting into bot lane fights, mid lane fights, dragon fights, baron fights, etc. Especially since Irelia has like no immediate CC, she's not like a Malphite TPing into a fight. It's here comes Irelia, you know. Nimbus Cloak is kind of like a really nice luxury tool. And again, you're trying to outweigh the laning tools of inspiration. And if the lane really doesn't matter, then having something like this you might as well. With Gathering Storm, you gain bonus attack damage based on every 10 minutes in the game. So this is more useful at higher MMRs where the game can last longer, and then if it does, it's completely fine for the Irelia. And then the Domination Tree is like probably the most useless in the top lane. It can be fine mid lane. And the mid lane, Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter gives you okay value where you're trying to offset a lot of the poke damage that you're taking from champions like Orianna Syndra, and through doing so, it puts you at better lane states, and you can threaten them because you're at a higher amount of HP, and then you have control over the wave because of that. And the top lane, that doesn't really happen. The top lane's a longer lane, so it means that bigger waves build up and bigger waves come like push into the enemy. So having this like lane sustain tool isn't really that useful. And Ravenous Hunter is pretty bad on Irelia. If you think about the champions that use Ravenous Hunter well, so champions like Aatrox, Cassiopeia, where they constantly are dishing out damage or they're dealing damage in an AoE, then it makes more sense. Ravenous Hunter is also damage from your abilities, so it's just from the W, the E, the Q, the ult. It's really not that much. Everyone's really crazy for some healing, so that's that for top lane Irelia runes. Or for the Conqueror with top lane Irelia. With Press the Attack with top lane, you want to be running Press the Attack into matchups in which you basically create lethals that otherwise wouldn't exist, and it's also better into matchups where you can't just trade onto them. So usually just ranged matchups, champions like Lucian, Teemo, etc. With Press the Attack, hitting an enemy champion 3 consecutive times marks them as vulnerable, dealing damage based on your level, and then also exposes them, increasing damage they take by 8 to 11 or 8 to 12%. That's also based on your level from all sources, which is you, for 6 seconds. So this has really, really, really good synergy with just all-inning a ranged champion that was beating you early. So if you survive an early game matchup, you have Corrupting Potion, Doran Shield, and then maybe just a Longsword, and you hit level 6, that's when you turn onto a ranged top laner, and then you just simply kill them with Press the Attack plus Coup de Grace. That gives you just lethals that you otherwise wouldn't have with Conquer, and then the values from Conquer, it's just attack damage and then healing, have way less value in those matchups, as it's just more important to simply kill that champion in the lane because you can do so with Irelia's damage numbers. So that's that. For the mid lane with Irelia, Press the Attack has this similar value, but in the mid lane you're usually playing into control mages where you can't just pick and choose to kill them like on cooldown, versus in the top lane where you can kind of just run them down, especially if they're at a weaker state or if you're at a stronger state. In the mid lane, they have less, or they have less distance to their tower, and they also usually have abilities to peel you off them. So think about like Syndra E, Orianna ult, etc. So running Conqueror is fine in the mid lane, as you're not really looking to fight your own lane. You're looking to scale into the mid to late game and then not only kill your lane opponent, but then kill the entire enemy team as well. So when it's not so much about killing your lane, Conqueror gets more value, but you can still run Press the Attack in those lanes. And then again with the Domination Tree second in the mid lane, it can make sense to have Taste of Blood and then Ravenous Hunter, as with Taste of Blood, again, you can be offsetting a lot of the poke damage from champions like Orianna, Syndra in the early game, so that you can crash waves and then get resets off at a safer rate than you otherwise would be able to. And then with Sorcery second in the mid lane, it loses a lot of value over Time Warp Tonic and Biscuits, as champions in the mid lane do just deal higher burst damage most of the time, and having the immediate healing is going to be more generally useful. But again, when you could, let's say a mid lane matchup like Ornn, similar to top lane, you could get better value out of Null Orb and Transcendence, as you just get that scaling for free. But that's really it for Irelia runes. The variations and the shifts from the different lanes are really just about the matchups, and the primary keystone and Press the Attack and Conquer, I think, are pretty apparent when you want to run them. Simply put, Conquer into melees, Press the Attack into ranged champions, and then kind of the same thing, Coup de Grace and Last Stand. Coup de Grace into ranged matchups, Last Stand into melee matchups most of the time. There's obviously like melee champions that Press the Attack would be good into, but yeah. If this video helped you, leaving a like on the video helps me. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I answer literally all of them. And if you're interested in watching me talk about League of Legends or play it, then you can check out my Twitch. It's twitch.tv/SollyNelson. Will I play Irelia? Hey, maybe. Probably not. All right, bye-bye. See ya.